Fires wide open for a first down and a fumble.
Let's be perfectly clear. Pittsburgh got the victory, but the Saints lost this game.
Obviously, the turnovers are frustrating. I think it's difficult enough to come into a place like this against a team that won the Super Bowl a year ago and win. And then it's more difficult when you turn it over like we did.
Going into the Steel City, where the defending Super Bowl champs were reeling on the ropes at 2-6, the Saints never could apply that knockout punch. For too long, they traded blows.
I never felt like we were ever going for a knockout. We're playing too good a team. I felt like you just are always, each possession, you're looking forward to trying to manufacture some points, and you know, you're always looking to go up 2 scores, you know, to separate yourself a little bit. But it didn't work out.
Week 10 in Pittsburgh looked a lot like Week 2 in Green Bay. The Saints would start slow, with turnovers eventually leading to touchdowns. Little did we know then that a theme was slowly developing. The Saints got their wake-up call once they fell behind 14-0. On the team's second possession, Drew Brees got the Saints on the board with this 4-yard strike to Terrence Copper. It was a 17-point swing for the black and gold. John Carney's 20-yard field goal was followed up by Reggie Bush getting his second NFL touchdown, his first within the framework of the offense. Saints running backs sniffed out the end zone 3 times today, Deuce McAllister getting a pair of his own. The first coming just before the halftime break. The Saints led 24-17 at the half.
We mixed in the run. We had a little package of some empty stuff that we had planned and prepared for, and we just tried to change it up enough on offense so it wasn't one thing or the other. That was the plan going in.
Reggie Bush. Ball comes out.
In the second half, Dr. Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde. All of a sudden, the Saints couldn't do much right. Bush's second quarter touchdown was all but forgotten when he laid the ball on the turf in the third quarter. Steelers recovered the fumble. And they quickly made the Saints pay for their mishandling. Ben Roethlisberger finding a wide-open Cedric Wilson on a 38-yard touchdown, tying the game at 24-all.
Yeah, the turnovers cost us, and it hurt us bad.
A sold-out Heinz Field. So much noise, but that didn't disturb the Saints' nap on defense. Willie Parker stuffed all night long on the run up the middle, deciding to try his luck on the outside. Parker finished the game with 213 yards rushing, with 147 of them coming on a pair of long runs into the Saints' red zone, both leading to touchdowns, both by Parker.
Yes, I think we had a couple brain farts out there, and you know, he took advantage of it.
But if there's one thing we've come to learn from a Payton coach team, it's that there's no quit in them. In a minute and 50 seconds, Drew Brees got the Saints to within a touchdown on a play that looked like it was drawn up in the sand.
Drew was changing the play, or he was, you know, redirecting as far as the linebacker, as far as where the protection was going. But I just saw the ball pop up and, you know, just tried to make a play.
Basically just rolled back to Deuce, and it was the best looking trick play you've ever seen.
On the game's final drive, Brees got the Saints to Pittsburgh's 45-yard line. Then the turnover bug bit again. Terrence Copper fumbled, Pittsburgh recovered, game over, Steelers win 38-31.
I feel like that we were in control pretty much the whole game. You know, we just got to take care of the ball. I mean, we put up a lot of numbers, but you know, it's about W's. You know, so the numbers will be there, but if we don't take care of the ball, then you know, you're an average team.
I'm J.Kincaid, 4th down on 4.
It was.
If you didn't know his story, Sean Payton would have you fooled too. Despite his early season success with the Saints, he's not a seasoned NFL head coach. His time on this job is just 9 games old, but he walks and talks and leads like a natural. Which takes us to where it all began for Payton, 30 miles west of Chicago in Naperville. At Naperville Central High School, a place that, like Payton, has really grown up in the past 25 years.
He was just sort of the ringleader of all of them as a sophomore, and that didn't change throughout his whole career there.
J.R. Bishop was Payton's high school football coach for 3 seasons.
As a junior, as I walked up and down the sidelines, Sean was always by my side, and I didn't direct him. to do that. He was just there because he was in the game and so forth. And at different times, during different games, he would have something to say. Sometimes I paid attention to him, sometimes I didn't.
As a player, Payton had time to develop, but as a transplant into Naperville's Maplebrook subdivision, he quickly developed friendships that have lasted a lifetime.
Once we brought lawnmowers up there, we tried to make a golf course out of that field.
Best friend and teammate Scott Zielinski says the calm and cool that you see in Payton now is not the same guy he grew up with.
Full of energy. He was just, you know, we called him the kinetic man because he always wanted to be doing things and loved sports. That's all he did was sports.
Impatient in a good way, and again, I think eager to please would be more, you know, accurate in the way I look at it than impatient necessarily. He knew what he wanted to be, and you know, I don't know if he was in a hurry to get there, but he was anxious to get there.
When Payton got to Naperville in 1977, sports occupied his time. From football to baseball, if it was in season, Sean was in uniform.
And he did all of them well. He actually, he played baseball, stopped playing baseball, and then went out senior year for baseball and made it again. So he was always a very good athlete. I think he stopped basketball to concentrate on football, but we did everything. We would sneak into gyms to play basketball constantly, and that's, you know, that was what our group was. We just loved to play sports.
And almost instantly, his following grew. Payton never saw himself as the leader of the pack, but it was never in question.
He always had the ideas, so to speak. He was kind of the idea man. Let's do this, and you know, it's kind of hard to say no to Sean sometimes, just because he's eager to please and he's got that personality that we should do this. And the more you thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, maybe we should do this. So I think in that sense, he was the leader.
He was their leader. He was their leader walking down the hallway, and not because he necessarily wanted to be. You know, he wasn't, I'm going to be the big man on campus. That was not the case with him. He was a leader because they respected his knowledge of the game.
And that knowledge was developed on the sideline next to Bishop.
And he was such a student of the game then that I really appreciated what he brought to the table for us.
Sean's former teammate said his #1 fault back then was that he was just too impatient, which is kind of ironic because Sean didn't just walk in to the starting job here at Naperville Central. He had to wait his turn. He didn't take one snap during his junior year, mainly because the head coach's son was the starting quarterback. So Sean's first time in the spotlight came in the first game of his senior season.
He certainly wanted to play, no question, but I think he wanted to learn too. And I think learning from Coach Bishop, I think he understood the game more. I think he looked at it more at a strategic level, trying to understand not only what the quarterback did, but really every position.
He worked really hard to accomplish what he did. You know, and when I go back now and watch the old games, you get a much greater appreciation of
how hard he worked.
How hard he worked, and just the little things. You know, it's not just passing, it's a lot of other things that go into it where you realize, you know, he was really good, you know, and it showed.
It showed when he finally got his chance, that senior season, 1981, and Payton led his high school team back to the state playoffs.
Our players very definitely believed in him, that as long as he was out there, that we had a chance.
Total confidence in him.
He probably was #1 when it came to thinking he could win. Whether it was anybody else out there or not, he thought he win. And I don't think he ever had any doubt that he would ever lose a game that he played.
But they would eventually lose in the quarterfinals, but by then, Payton had left his mark on the program and on his friends. Football was his passion, but his friends were, and continue to be, his life and his biggest fans. They were with him during the lean years, and Payton rewards them now that he's in the thick of realizing his lifelong dream.
His way of saying thanks to us is, come see the games. That means a lot to me, for people to come watch him.
I think that talks about the kind of person he is that, you know, even with all the accolades and whatever, Sean is still Sean.
I was going to say, that's what she always says, that's just Sean, you know.
Still that deep, caring, kind individual that he always was, and I don't anticipate that'll ever change.
And Payton's outstanding senior season was a kickstart to many great things to come. As a player, Payton excelled in college, made it to the pros, and wound up staying there for a while.
But there is one thing he'd like to change about his past, and we'll take a look at that in part 2 of Payton's path through New Orleans tonight on Night Watch.
And Naperville's a nice community.
The Rookie of the Year balloting in the National League was tight. In the American League, a landslide. Florida Marlins shortstop Hanley Ramirez is the National League honoree. Detroit Tiger pitcher Justin Verlander easily copped the American League honor. If you're forced to play catch-up, Heinz Field would seem to be the place. But as the Saints have shown in their 3 losses this season, when you give the ball away and can't take it away, well, that's not going to cut the mustard. The Saints caught up from a 14-point deficit last night, but the turnover differential is usually the difference between winners and losers. Okay, enough of that. In the Saints' 3 losses to Carolina, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, the Saints have given it away 9 times while taking it away just once on a fumble recovery. The proud Polish fans of the Steelers are called Uzes, as in, where's Uzes going? Comparable to our beloved Yats. Their pierogi is comparable to our beignet as a breakfast treat. As the terrible towel-waving fans of the Steelers will tell you, if Uzes can't protect the pierogi, Uzes is going to lose, as the Steelers had and the Saints did. In the Steelers' last 2 losses of the 3-game losing streak that they carried into last night's victory, Ben Roethlisberger had been intercepted 7 times. Last night, the Saints didn't have their hands on a single opportunity to intercept 1. Now, the same could be said of Jake Delhomme and Steve McNair when they were flawless in their wins over the Saints as well. And you're going to run into hot quarterbacks like that. But the fact remains the Saints haven't had an interception in their last 3 games, have only 4 for the season. None by a cornerback or a nickelback, and only the Redskins with 2 have fewer in the entire league. Yesterday in the NFL, the margin between victory and defeat was about as thin as Tony Kornheiser's comb-over. In 12 of the 15 games played, the margin of victory was 8 points or fewer. The Saints' margin of defeat was 7. As the Saints have shown, you don't have to be significantly flawed to lose when your opponent is nearly flawless in the turnover department. Sean Payton had said last week that when you've got a winning record while losing the turnover battle, you're living on borrowed time. To prevent additional losses like the 3 the Saints have suffered to fall to -6 in turnover differential, the time has come for the offense to cut down on the giveth and the defense to step up the takingeth away. And I shall see you on iNews with more.
Absolutely. iNews. Call. Talk to this man.
That's right. Looking forward to it.
Well, we've been fortunate.